I'm Kevin Millett, the Chief Data Officer of GotChew, and today we're going to be reviewing some of the strides that we've made in analyzing our customer base. I think you're going to like what we have here. As far as myself, my joy is making data sync. I've held many roles in my past, but I think the most joy I get is when I have a full day just of here's a data set, see what you can get out of it. See how you can look at this. I tried for a long time to find that position within many corporations and startups. It just doesn't exist. So we just kind of had to make the position here at GotChew. But definitely, you can look me up on LinkedIn. I would appreciate the connect. But definitely a lot of data-centric positions in the last 13, 14 years. We spoke 6 months ago to a small selection of restaurants, and we were talking about the customer visibility gap. And what it was is like as we're coming into a business, I try to pretend I'm the business owner and how I would like to look at my customer base. And that's how I want my reports to be generated, is to help me drive insights in how I can shape customer behaviors or enable strategies that are going to help me keep or retain my customer base. But it all really kind of depends on your ability to understand them. In the restaurant space, it's interesting because without the digital footprint, you can't really tag the client. Um, so you definitely have like a big question mark on who these people are. It's very easy from the POS system if you're tied into that to maybe scrape credit cards to get unique customers. And I think some of the more popular POS systems will do some of that segmentation for you. But then we get into a kind of like an even more difficult part because now we have multiple channels that we're working with. So we've got the in-house, we have the takeout, and the delivery. So I see three different channels that we're working with. So we kind of reviewed this and understanding that the restaurant base from the delivery channel we could probably exceed customer reporting, and we went through this kind of like back and forth on trying to make sure that you could track the customer between the different channels and creating an omni-channel experience and et cetera, et cetera. Um, but what I really, really, really liked was I had this one vision of what I wanted this thing to look like. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Uh, all right. There's pictures here. Logos, pictures. I'm gonna put it in here. Ah, here it is. So if we look at this is a Sankey diagram, and I just absolutely love this chart. I think it has the potential to do uh, some amazing things in a very tight amount of space. And I saw this as kind of what I wanted to get to 6 months ago. I was like, I've got to figure out how I can get customer segmentation and fit it in this model and just make it look good. I think it'll help me. So we started on that path, and then we built all the API calls to the third-party vendors. We scraped all that data in. I transcribed JSON directly into SQL, dump it into our database, and then we started doing some reporting. And the reporting, the evolution is interesting, right? So you kind of start off with what I like to call just like the orders, like because it's easy to any system that tracks transactions, you can easily count the number of orders. You don't even have to do the average spend or anything. So usually what you'll see is something very similar to this. And this one's divided by a week. So this is our week over week growth from looks to about June of last year to see 2019 to near current. But it's definitely we can see a lot of growth here. But this chart kind of gives you some understanding of the growth, but it doesn't give you the behavior. It doesn't give you the customers. It's just these are just the transaction counts. And so we want to go a little bit deeper. And so we want to count, in the financial sector, you call it households, but we here we just call it unique customers. Unique, and this is we've divided by unique active customers in a month. And you can see once again now, you can see that with these unique customers, the growth is month over month. It's pretty good. But it still doesn't really help you understand behavior, right? The behavior is missing. So we decided let's take a look at the number of new customers that make that up every month. So we'll segment it now: regular customers or reoccurring customers versus net new for that month. And we can see here, like this was our Fall River expansion, huge growth in that net new customer base month to month, but it still doesn't really get us 100% there. Now what's good about this though is we're starting to segment the base a little bit. Now we got new versus, we're not going to say old, but existing. But now, well, this is where we start, and I think this kind of represents where I think like a lot of um, the more analytic prowess they have. I think this is where a lot of places start to get to, is understanding that customer base and its interaction. And you can slice and dice this by any attribute. We chose frequency of orders. We could divide this by hub. We could divide this by lunch versus dinner. We could divide this by average spend. But we chose right now to understand the customer base from the frequency of usage patterns. So we got our 10 plus per month bucket, our 5 to 9, our 2 to 4, and our 1. So we've got the people that never cook all the way down to the people who use us very infrequently. Now this chart tells some stories, and I like this. And when we look at this chart, we start to see that we have a real hard core group of power users that represent, it's growing, and they represent a significant volume. And we're going to, the next slide, we actually break that down. And each one of these buckets are growing. And so you can see that. But it gives kind of still a false sense that, for like the one users, the 460, 560, 705. For me, when you read a chart like this, you think that you've got 460 and then another 100 people jump the next month. That bucket is there. But you don't really get to see like the dynamic movements of people within these segments. You just get to see that snapshot in time. Bam, there it is right there. But when you do have a report like this, the next interesting thing to look at is that 80-20 rule. Does 20% of your customer base make up 80% of your orders? And honestly, when we look at our 1%ers here, our 10 plus orders per month, 1.63% makes up nearly 10% of our volume. And what's interesting is from this perspective this month, the one-hitters make up exactly the same. So 1.63% of our volume is made up by 1.63% of our customer base makes up almost 10% of our volume, and that's equivalent to almost 53% of the other side of the customer base. So when you're talking about like who do we give premium offers to, how much do we put that? I mean, that kind of gives you a justification for that right there, almost 10%. That's a really, really, really nice chart. Still doesn't get you to the meandering between the groups though. So we're getting better. We're getting better. Now back to the Sankey diagram. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to see in a very small piece of real estate, I wanted to be able to see the migration between segments month over month. So I could see, and I wanted to be able to add net new customers in there and see where they ended up in that segmentation standpoint. And what I think I have here is it is beautiful. I mean, I've never seen a chart that makes me so happy than this chart right here. And I call this the segmentation Sankey diagram. And let me pull my face out here so you can see it. All right. So what we have here is from June. Let me put this. I can kind of come right here in the corner here. We have from June 2018 to March 2019. So this is all, or these are all the paths that customers take. And that same color scheme we've applied here. So this blue line, this really thin blue line at the top, represents our power users, that 1.63%. And then we get to the green, which is our next 5 to 9. Then we get to our purple, which is our 2 to 4. The orange, which is the single use. And then we have the gray, which is now our unactive user base, the base that's used us. And we keep track of that. Those are the registered users, but they might not necessarily be active, which gives us a good pool of people to start campaigning to again for pulling back into that frequency pattern. Now what's beautiful about this is right out of the gate is the symmetry. The symmetry alone is just insane. I've got these what I call the Eye of Osiris patterns between different segments that month over month. It almost looks like they're swimming from one group to the next. we can see, and I love that you can check this here because it really highlights like where the stuff is coming from. So let's take a look at 2018. This is November, October, right here. So this is October, and what I've highlighted here is the one consumer base right here, the one users. And even though in the other chart it would show that you only could get you had like that static sample in time. That's that static sample, but now we can see everything that leads up to it. So we can see that what looks to be like about 10% came from, and I'm pointing at it like you can see it, 10% came from our user base that is really inactive. And so we're pulling people up from that group. We can see that there's about 15% that came from the one already, so you can see that it smoothed right into there. Then we've got another, looks like 9% or so that came from the 2 to 4 users. And so we have people that are moving down in the frequency cycle. We've got to keep an eye on those. Then we had just a handful from these groups here. You can see the little whiskers that are coming down. And then we get to see that the bulk of that, over 50%, is coming and being driven by the net new customers. These red. So what I've done is I've sliced the month, and in between the months I add or inject the net new customers. And so you can see, like if I highlight this, you can see where those guys end up. And this is just powerful right here. So any new customer base looks like about 60% when it's my one user. Then I got another 15 to 20%, and then I snuck in just a few that became power users right away. So what good is this? What good is this? First off, it's from a fraud detection standpoint, this gives you some interesting viewpoints because we can tell right out of the gate if we see a new customer come in and go directly to the 10 plus. That's high risk for us. We know that those people don't have an existing relationship with us and they come out of the gate running. And we usually see a ramp up to that point, not in a direct, we're going to use you every day for the next 2 weeks and then, whatever. So we can see we have potential fraud, and that's going to be in areas that this new customer base, this red, going directly into our top tier here. So that's a nice little way that we can identify that. Or if we have people in our top tier that are dropping off, this is very easy to represent. And overall, I mean, just you can see in a very minute piece of real estate, this is 8-9 months worth of growth here, month over month, June, July, August, September. So you can see if the symmetry, it's almost like an engine, like you almost the flows of an engine or the heartbeat or the EKG of the business itself. And then you see these frequency cycles, and now when you're visually looking at the entire, you could probably fit a year on this, you can identify if there are certain segments that are just all of a sudden, their frequency patterns run out. They start, either you see a larger percentage of the ones going into the non-user. So right now we run anywhere from 30 to 40% for retention rate for new users per month. But now we can start to see if is that coming down, or are we seeing that there's a huge swing every month of people that are coming back from inactive to active? There's all sorts of reasons or things that you can look at here. But what I think is great is that it gives you the ability to ask more questions. Like for instance, what I notice is this nice swing here, this swing that comes right here, and it's almost as if my 2 to 4s go into inactive, and then they come back into active. And what I want to know, is that the same customer base? Do I have a group of people that in tandem like to use this frequently during the month and then not? And then come back and use this and not? Maybe it's a guilt cycle. Maybe it's like, oh, we feel guilty because we didn't cook because we ordered out all week, and now I'm getting lazy, so now I'm going to cook. I'm going to order out all week. And then that cycle, I don't know. That's the next step in the analytics. We get to review that. But what this does is it gives us the opportunity to ask those educated questions. I hope you enjoyed this. I thoroughly did. I think that this chart right here it makes my day. It really does. If you're interested in learning more about this chart and the process to get to that, the critical thinking that leads up to this, you can reach out to me at kevin@GotChew.co. That's C-O, not C-O-M. And also, I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't tell you that we're open for investments. And if you have any questions about being an investor with GotChew, you can reach out to us at investor@GotChew.co. Thank you again. This is Kevin Millett from GotChew, Chief Data Officer, and I hope you enjoyed what we have. Thank you.